Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Q2 2019 Digital Marketing Report Review. To lead today's webinar, we are joined by two industry experts, Merkle's Mark Ballard, Vice President of Research, and Andy Taylor, Associate Director of Research. And now over to Mark to get us started.
Thanks, Emily, and welcome everyone on the line. Just a little bit of background on the Merkle Digital Marketing Report before we get started. This is the 31st edition of this, so we've been doing it for a while. We released it 2 days ago on July 23rd. And in terms of the numbers that we're looking at, we are looking at same-site results from established programs in these different channels. And we do make an effort to remove outliers that would skew the results in a significant fashion so that the results we present are more typical of what a typical brand is seeing out there. And we enjoy a large pool of data that we're working with Merkle having $1.5 billion in managed media annually. So without further ado, we're going to get started with Google paid search and the high-level trends here. We've continued to see some deceleration in spending growth for Google, down about a point between Q1 and Q2, with spend up 15% year over year. In terms of the key metrics there, a little bit slower click growth, down to 10% growth year over year in Q2, and then CPC growth slipped slightly, but was more steady at 4% growth year over year. And at a high level, where we saw some weakness was on the shopping side, and we'll get into that here. If you look down at the breakout here, Google Shopping, formerly known as PLAs, slowed down about a couple points from about 40% growth to 38% growth between Q1 and Q2. Text ads, where we've seen spending declines year over year for several quarters now, they were steady there in terms of the scale of those declines at 12%. And the key factor that we point to here is Yahoo's departure from Google's search network. Yahoo had been running Google Shopping ads since 2016 at least, but at the end of Q1, they transitioned to Microsoft as their sole provider of search ads, including the shopping inventory that Google had been providing. They also gave Microsoft the inventory that they were running through Gemini as well, and we'll speak a bit to that when we speak to Microsoft results specifically. But, we did see this in terms of the share of Google Shopping clicks produced by partners, down a couple points between Q1 and Q2, down to 4%. A year ago, we were seeing more like 7-8% shopping partner click share. And the big piece of that is Yahoo dropping out at the end of Q1. Text ad side's always been a little bit lower, and that continues to trend down over time. Shifting gears a little bit, one thing we've been asked about in the last quarter or so is what happened for Google between Q4 and Q1 this year. This is stacking the Google search spend growth numbers from Merkle, the orange line here, against Google's ad revenue growth rates. And typically they've trended pretty similarly over time. A couple outlier quarters here and there. We did not see the same sort of decline that Google saw, and importantly, Google is including YouTube in their numbers. They don't break that out. But one thing we can point to, and at least on the search side of the business, between Q4 and Q1, there was a pretty big slowdown in spending on Google brand keywords. This is the advertiser brand name. In Q4 2017, we had seen a huge spike in CPCs for those types of keywords. And as we got into Q4 2018 and certainly into Q1 2019, the year-over-year effect there kind of wore off. So pretty big slowdown in spend growth between Q4 and Q1 for that brand keyword segment. That's picking back up again in Q2 as CPCs the growth rate is starting to rise again, but nowhere near what we were seeing late 2017 into 2018. So, hard to say if that is a big factor in the numbers that Google reported, but it's the one thing that we can point to there. And for the advertisers listening, it is certainly something to keep an eye on. Those brand CPCs are often at the whim of changes that Google makes behind the scenes, and there are some strategies that you can employ to kind of keep those in check if there's a tweak to ad rank that causes a spike like this. In terms of devices, not a major change here. We did see a slowdown in phone spending growth. That was doing particularly well in late 2018. A lot of that was due to the strength of Google Shopping on mobile. Still a solid growth number at 34%. Desktop, 6% growth. In Q2 2019, that picked up a little bit, and then tablets, kind of hovering there around the 0% growth mark, down about 6% in Q2. And talk a lot about shopping. One of the big announcements this quarter was Marketing Live from Google, where they rolled out a bunch of new products. Many of them are image-based, like shopping ads are. And we've been following the Showcase shopping ad format in addition to tracking the overall trends for shopping. And I think it shows that there is room for Google to play around with formats, expand the number of formats out there. We've seen good traction from Showcase shopping ads, up to about 8.5% of total Google Shopping clicks in Q2, and that's been a pretty steady rise over time. Really didn't kick off that format until late 2017, so that's picked up quite a bit in the last couple of years there. And specifically for the Showcase shopping ad format, there will be some new inventory. Here's some examples. The more traditional listings are on the left, those two on Google.com, but you also see some examples of what Google thinks they'll look like on image search and even in the Discover feed. So not a lot to report on those new formats yet, Discover ads, gallery ads, but I think Google is looking for them to have an impact this year, later this year, and we'll be tracking that as they roll out and get adoption among advertisers.